Hello, welcome to the Social Justice Forum. I am Daren Jaime, your host, and thank you for joining us. If you're asking the question, what is the show all about? We bring you a forum providing a deeper understanding of the issues and inequities that many communities face, from systemic inequalities to pressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives and insights, helping us better understand and address these challenges. We invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. The First and Last King of Haiti is a book that's shedding light on Henry Christopher's complex and controversial story. From his humble beginnings as a child of enslaved parents to his rise as a leader in the Haitian Revolution, Christophe's journey is one of betrayal, heroism, and tragedy. Our guest brings a fresh perspective on this historical figure and the impact of his ruling, while also connecting us to Haiti's past and its present. We're pleased to be joined by the author and professor of French and African Diaspora Studies at Yale University, Dr. Marlene Doubt. And we thank you so much, Dr. Doubt, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And so as we talk a little bit about this writing, what inspires?
Yeah, I had been reading, I'm Haitian American, so I had been reading about the Haitian Revolution for many years. But Christophe was always kind of an elusive character. And so with The First and Last King of Haiti, I really wanted to get in depth into his life and find out who he really was, what inspired him to join the Haitian Revolution. When you think about the fact that he was actually born on the British island of Grenada, had previously fought in the American Revolutionary War at the Battle of Savannah, I wanted to find out, how did he end up in Saint-Domingue, which later becomes Haiti?
Yeah. And when we talk about him, the first and the last king of Haiti and his rise there to really get to the place of becoming king, there's some background to that.
Oh, definitely. So, he does become not just a participant in the Haitian Revolution, which of course is started in August 1791, a massive slave revolt and rebellion that really, turns into full-blown revolution pretty quickly. And again, Christophe is not just a side player. He becomes a major general, one of the freedom fighters. He's kind of the right-hand man of Toussaint Louverture. And then after Toussaint Louverture is arrested and deported by the French, Christophe becomes general-in-chief of the Haitian army under Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who had declared Haiti independent on January 1st, 1804. And so Christophe has a lot of responsibilities pretty quickly. But after Dessalines is tragically assassinated in October 1806, Christophe has this moment where he's got to decide what to do. Shall he join with the conspirators who want to set up a republic, or shall he go off on his own? And he ultimately decides to flee to the north where he had been living. And eventually he sets up his own kingdom and he becomes the king of Haiti.
Yeah. And when we think about the time of Haiti, at the time of his, becoming king, give us a little bit about the background as to what was going on right around the time that he was becoming king that elevated him into the kingship.
Yes. So if we go back to the moment of Dessalines' assassination, we're really talking about kind of experimentation in governance. Dessalines had been an emperor and had declared an empire of Haiti. But Christophe and Dessalines' rival, a man named Alexandre Pétion, who had also fought during the Haitian Revolution, he really wants to experiment with the idea of a republic where you would have a president. And Christophe doesn't really agree with this. But when he flees to the north, I should mention this creates a civil war. And this civil war is going to last between the northern and southern parts of Haiti for 13 long years. So Christophe does become king in 1811, but only over part of the country in the north. And previous to that, he had actually been president over just the north. So it's this very tumultuous time in Haitian history. And then you have to think about the fact that France is still not recognizing Haitian independence and trying to invade them so that they can restore slavery, which is kind of astonishing to think about.
And for yourself, I mean, obviously taking a look at this and really being intrigued by his life, his legacy, one of the things that we have to say is that there's some controversy involved too.
Absolutely. So Christophe is known for building a massive citadel. Today it's called the Citadelle La Ferrière. In his day, it was called the Citadelle Henri. This fortress sits atop one of the highest mountain peaks in Haiti. It has been widely hailed as the eighth wonder of the world. It's the largest fortress in North America, and it's meant to protect Haiti from invasion. But as you can imagine, how are you going to build such a massive structure? All of the bricks, all of the materials that have to be carted all the way up this mountain in the hot Haitian sun. And so Christophe institutes what is called a corvée, and this is labor in lieu of taxes. So if you weren't wealthy, you weren't a part of the military elite, and you couldn't pay your taxes, which you can imagine is many people, you got sent up to do labor. And so this has really kind of put an asterisk by Christophe's legacy in the minds of many who question whether or not this massive citadel can really be seen as a symbol of Black freedom and sovereignty, given the labor that was used to construct it.
Yeah. And when we talk about this fortress, obviously, as you said, a very legacy piece, if you will, that's out there in Haiti. Talk to me a little bit about the people, because there was this divided Haiti as well. And,
Yeah.
and as Haiti became divided, let's talk about what caused Haiti to become divided and where Christophe falls in.
Yeah, I mean, on the face of things, we can really see this as a contest over who is going to be in control. This is a legacy that was left behind from Toussaint Louverture when Christophe and Dessalines by turn seem to betray him, and this results in Louverture's arrest and again his deportation and his eventual death in France in a cold prison in the Jura Mountains. And when Dessalines takes the reins as emperors, the kinds of divisions that had existed under Toussaint don't evaporate. And those divisions remain when Christophe takes the reins. And his vision for Haiti is really strong, but it's opposed to the one that says Haiti should be a republic with a president and a senate. And Christophe creates, in contrast, of course, a monarchy with a nobility, with dozens of counts and dukes and barons. And it's a place of opulence and wealth, but also a place where the people aren't necessarily involved in governing themselves and in choosing their leaders.
And when we think about America and how America perceived Christophe during that time, what was it like?
Oh, goodness. So it depended greatly. So, in the southern United States, where there's still slavery, of course, lots of demonization of Christophe, making fun of the fact that he is a Black king, saying things like he apes royalty, really kind of your standard racist, stereotypical fare. But in the northern United States, interestingly enough, Christophe actually gets quite a bit of support from northern anti slavery activists and also northern merchants who are very interested in trading with Haiti, especially after Thomas Jefferson's trade embargo expires. They really see Haiti as quite a lucrative market. So it's a really regional attitude that people will hold. But in some ways, it's more astonishing that Christophe finds support in the North because there's a strongly kind of anti monarchical sentiment in the North stemming from the days of John Adams' presidency. And yet you find all of these defenses of Christophe as king and of the monarchy as a system of governance in northern US newspapers during Christophe's reign.
Yeah. And as we look at the legacy right now of Haiti and Christophe and where he stands, how would you define it?
Oh, I would say Christophe's greatest legacy is not necessarily these amazing structures he built. Along with the citadel, there was also his palace at Sans Souci, which means without worry in French. And this palace was magnificent. It was destroyed partially, unfortunately, by an 1842 earthquake and is not able to be restored. And so, on the face of things, you could say, oh, this is his greatest legacy. But I think his greatest legacy was actually his vision of Haitian sovereignty in an extremely hostile world. Because even though Great Britain and the United States are trading with Haiti during this time period, they're actually not recognizing Haitian sovereignty because they don't want to anger France and because slavery still exists on US shores and in the British colonies. And Christophe was unwilling to compromise on Haitian sovereignty. When the French kings and the Southerners are floating the idea that perhaps Haiti could pay France an indemnity as the price of freedom, as the price of French recognition of Haiti's sovereignty, Christophe uses one word. He says, inadmissible. Absolutely not. And his death in 1820 unfortunately opened the door for his successor, a man named Jean Pierre Boyer, to kind of restart the conversation about the indemnity, which ended in a disastrous 1825 agreement whereby the Haitian government agreed to pay France 150 million francs as the price of recognition.
When you look at the Haitian leaders, and you look at Haitian leaders down throughout history, how do you rank Christophe?
I think in some ways I might be a little bit biased
Possibly, yeah.
having spent 10 years, greater than 10 years studying his life, but um I think in terms of vision, I would put him as number 1, but in terms of means, I wouldn't rank him as highly. I think certainly he was under a lot of pressure. He had also experienced a traumatic past fighting at the age of only 12 years old in the Battle of Savannah. But at the end of the day, it's the people in a country who always suffer when their leaders make mistakes, which is, in fact, something that one of Christophe's most prominent ministers, the Baron de Vatte, wrote in his 1819 History of Haiti. And so I think we can't ever forget that, even as we're ranking leaders or wanting to prop up the good things that they did, that it does matter if people were harmed under their rule.
Yeah. And when we look at Haitian history, talk to me about the role of women and some prominent women that come to mind for you.
Yeah, well, Christophe had a wife. Her name was Marie Louise, and she, of course, becomes the Queen of Haiti. And it's very interesting because whenever Christophe would show clemency to someone who was about to be punished, um, his wife might intervene and say, you need to show some mercy, some more mercy here. And she would be the one to get credit for that clemency that he's going to bestow on certain figures, because it was very important to him to seem very strong. And so if there was ever a question of mercy, he would often say, it's my wife who has encouraged me to do this. Christophe also had 2 daughters. He was very interested in their education, which perhaps is what led him to set up a national school system that was supposed to be for boys and girls. Now, this never fully came to fruition for girls because Christophe had trouble recruiting female school teachers from abroad to come and train Haitian school teachers in the country. At the time, they believed that female students should be taught only by women. But there were also plenty of women, I just have to say, who participated in the Haitian Revolution. And we see their legacies and remnants in the histories of Haiti written by Haitians. And the last thing I would say about that is Queen Marie Louise actually has a guard, a corps of female guards called the Amazon, and they're women, and they are dressed in a very elaborate fashion. And even though they don't engage in combat, they were kind of the talk of a certain sector of the world. They were written about in Great Britain and in the United States. So people were very fascinated by this idea of a female, corps of soldiers, quote unquote.
And when we think about that female corps of soldiers, I mean, obviously, I look at American history and I look at where, women have risen and then now women in the military. You look at Haiti. When you look at where we are today and you see where Haiti was, how do you reconcile? I mean, there's been much improvement in some areas. And then in many ways you can find yourself and say, when it comes to areas such as women and treatment, you might find yourself in the same place.
Yeah, I would say, it was being the early 19th century under Christophe's rule. This is not going to be a highly egalitarian society in terms of gender politics. one of the reasons that Christophe and his ministers are very interested in female education is because they say, well, women are mothers and therefore they're the child's first teacher. And so if they aren't well instructed, how will they, instruct the children well? So they have some kind of patriarchal ideas. And, it does, we must point out that Haiti doesn't have, females in positions of leadership for a really long time throughout the entire 19th century. And even in terms of writers, while the United States at this time period has a lot of women writing, Black women writing as well. Mariah Stewart comes to mind, Sarah Fortin, just to name some of the 19th century Black women writers from the United States. What we see an absence of in Haiti is women writing in the public sphere. But just as in the United States, there were a lot of pseudonymous writings, people writing under pen names that could very well have been women. But at the same time, Haiti's already had a female president and the United States has never had one. So just because the beginnings start out a little bit rough in terms of gender equity and equality doesn't necessarily mean that is how things will shake out in the end.
For people who want to get more information about your book and the work that goes on, how do they do that?
Absolutely. You can buy The First and Last King of Haiti anywhere books are sold. I am partial to independent bookstores. So I always say bookshop.org contributes to independent bookstores. And you can also visit my website, which is my name, marlenadoubt.com, and check out some of my other writings and resources for teachers, especially.
This has definitely been a labor of love for you, right? 10 years of research?
Yeah, it has been a labor of love, but I have to say, sometimes it was grueling, but it felt worth it because I know that this story is important. I tell my students every day the Haitian Revolution is for everyone. It is not just a story for Black people, for Black History Month. This is the story of how the world went from slavery to freedom, and everybody should know it.
Yeah. Dr. Marlene Doubt, author and professor of French and African Diaspora Studies at Yale University. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty, we're taking a quick break. We'll be back with more coming up right after this. We are back. As inequality continues to affect low-income communities, the Poor People's Campaign is leading the charge, demanding attention and action. The fight to combat voter suppression is stronger than ever, with grassroots efforts mobilizing communities and pushing for policy reform at both local and national levels. Faith-based leadership is at the forefront, guiding advocacy and inspiring change in the face of adversity. Join me now. We've got the president of the North Carolina Council of Churches, the Reverend Dr. Hannah Broome. And Dr. Broome, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And as we talk a little bit about the work that's going on, particularly North Carolina and across the United States, obviously income is of the essence. We know a lot of people are struggling in the area of income and income equality. That fight is very prevalent, given the fact that the current government is not accommodating for this. Just give us the sense of the climate that you're feeling right now.
Thank you for that question. Yes, living wages has yet to be increased since 2009, and yet our prices for our food, our expenses, even just basic necessities has continued to increase. So living wages is of importance. It is essential for our living. I think in North Carolina, you have to have at least a base salary of coming home per month of $1,900 just to rent a one-bedroom apartment. And we're still having people live on $7.25 an hour. The price of eggs is actually more than the cost of a dozen of eggs. So that lets you know where we're at right now when it comes to our living wages, our prices of our groceries, and just essential basic necessities to live.
When we talk about the, people in low-income neighborhoods and low-income communities, first of all, it does cross racial lines, and we understand that it's not just blacks; it's really blacks and whites, and
Mhm.
it's a mixed bag there. Give me the effects that you're finding for those people who are living in low-income communities. Just share with us a little bit about, some of the challenges that you find that people are facing right now.
People are having to make the decision of whether to buy groceries or pay rent, whether to buy medicine for their everyday life, or to just pay a light bill. So in these low income housing where funding is being taken away from Section 8, assistant living, and these particular things, the basic right or dignity of just having shelter has become a crisis. So even in low income housing, you're taking away the safety net of SNAP, you're taking away the safety net of Medicaid and Medicare. You're taking these essential things away that can help set off or even balance off some of the expenses of just living with medicine, just living with daycare. We're talking about all of these interconnected things in our low income housing, low income individuals that are living day to day. They're
Yeah.
having to make different difficult choices of medicine or food, medicine or rent.
And I know that you're at the grassroots level as an advocate, and also, the North Carolina Council of Churches, really bringing together a coalition of churches and pastors and ministries to really address the issues of social justice. When we talk about the Council of Churches and the advocacy that's gone through social justice, talk to us about the church and the role it's played in really facilitating being a voice to the voiceless.
Well, the church has always been essential to the prophetic call of in the wilderness, even since Jesus' time. Jesus' first ministry was his first sermon was about social justice. I've been called to take care of the poor, the needy, healing the brokenhearted, speaking truth to power. That was his first sermon. And so, as we look at the faith community and the political throughout history, we know that faith leaders have played an integral part in shaping political and social movements. We've seen this from biblical prophets to contemporary clergy. We've seen this. So it's not new to the church. It's actually coming back to the roots of the church and the religious voices that have stood at the forefront of justice, advocating for the marginalized, holding governments accountable. That has always been a mission of the church, not just salvation, but how do our members live? How do our communities live in a just and moral society? That has always been a mission of the church. We have to engage in politics. There's not a separation of politics and our religious traditions. It's actually, again, a return to the roots of our religions and our tradition. Moses, Nathan, we can call the prophets of old and all the way up to contemporary now, Bishop William Barber. So it has always been faith leaders engaging in politics and changing policies for a just and moral society.
You talk about holding government accountable, and obviously we do have some challenges in government. And when we look at what's going on in Washington, D.C., let's talk about some of the initiatives that you're working on in terms of holding government accountable. I mean, a lot of people are talking about DI, immigration, but I'll let you take it away.
So what we're seeing, we need to address Congress. We need to address those leaders that are allowing this abuse of unchecked power, challenging political leaders when policies contradict our moral and ethical principles, DEI, and we need to stop saying the acronym and really calling out that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we begin to have these conversations, we got to begin to ask people, what are you against diversity? What are you against equity? What is it that you're against in inclusion? We begin to have to look at this, challenging this moral narrative, false moral narrative that's out there that our faith community is against DEI. Mobilizing communities, encouraging civic engagement, beginning to have our faith communities go to school board meetings, go to city council meetings, go to your general assembly, go to your state capitol, and begin letting your elected officials know we are your constituency. You got to begin to have a policy that advocates for the marginalized, the ostracized, the left out, reinforcing funding back into communities that are being defunded. Look at our educational system and look at all of our schools that are having to be Title I schools, and that funding, that money is being shifted to privatized education. These are things that we as a faith community can begin to challenge on the local level. So we got to begin to intercede and begin to be that prophetic voice in the wilderness. Can't just be in the churches, but it actually has to be in the public square as well.
Yeah, and when we talk about being in the public square, obviously that's, no easy feat. Having people be engaged politically, socially, and taking on the mantle of social justice. It's hard for a lot of people who say, listen, I have no faith in government. I have no faith in that there will be justice served. What's your message for people in regards to engagement? Because when we talk about engagement, we understand, that there are a lot of people who listen who are apathetic about the situation simply because either failure to affect change or broken promises.
So we have an obligation to be prophetic voices. We cannot be passive observers. The church cannot afford to remain silent in the face of any injustice. The world needs modern day Moses, Esther's, Martin Luther King's, who were courageous enough to stand for righteousness. We got to begin to speak boldly against oppression and racism and economic justice. Mobilize our communities. It's not just registering to vote. It's not just actually going to vote. But what after that? What's after the ballot? We got to begin to push for righteous policies. We got to refuse to be manipulated politically while maintaining our moral clarity. We can't just be jumping and bouncing at headlines and sound bites, but we really got to stand in solidarity, really be strategic and intentional as faith leaders. I think it was the theologian Howard Thurman that said the masses of men live with their backs against the wall. And so the moral and spiritual question we have to do today is, what do we do about it? We got to come together. We have to be the answer, not just in the pulpit, but in the public square. You can begin at your local church organizing and beginning to be civically engaged with your elected officials on your local level. The time right now is for prophetic action.
Right.
So will our churches rise up to the occasion?
So when you talk to the average person now, I mean, let's say, listen, I'm out here watching, and I'm seeing what's going on. I don't like what's going on, but then again, I really feel like my vote doesn't matter. I really feel like I don't like the whole government thing, and how would you engage me to say, listen, you know what? It's important. You need to be active, and you need to take watch.
How would I engage you? First thing I would ask, what's important to you? If you say your family is important, so okay, let's look at these things that are affecting your family: education, living wages, where you could actually live. Redlining is a real thing. They might have changed the name of it, but it's still there. Where they're moving and defunding communities. So that's my first question. Not whether you're registered to vote, not whether you love the government or not, but what do you care about? I think they call them table topic issues. The food that goes on the table for my family, the pricing of it. So that's how I begin to engage them. And then from there, okay, if your concern is education of your children, then I have to begin to ask the question: when was the last time you was at a school board meeting? When was the last time you had a conversation with your educators in your community, at the school that your children are going with? Then from there, you begin to look at a plan of action as a concerned citizen, as a parent. If you don't have any children, but you're a concerned citizen because of crime in your community, okay, begin to look at, is it because there's no resources there? Is it because nobody's paying attention? Is it need to be a gun reform? Is it need to be a police accountability? We begin to have to look at what people care about. That's the first act of engagement. If I was engaging a faith community, my first thing would be, if you're looking at your congregation, what affects your people? And then me as a minister, me as a leader within that church, I will begin to look at that, begin to say, okay, this is how we can address this. Is there environmental waste in your area? Or, then we can begin to look at this. So you have to figure out what people care about first. And then that's how you begin to engage them into civic engagement.
Well, one thing people are talking about for sure is voter suppression. And
Yes.
that was pretty heavy, right? And we saw that in this last election. We saw it in the election prior. We've seen it in several elections. And one would think that since Dr. King and John Lewis, that we would not be talking about voter suppression still in 2025. Yet and still it's real. Yet and still it's relevant. And I'll ask the question: what are we doing here in the area of voter suppression, particularly in your neck of the woods?
I do know that there is some lawsuits against the voter suppression laws. So that's in act. What if your vote was not important? This is what I want everybody to understand. If your vote was not important, why do they need to suppress it? If there was not power within the people, then why are there discounting votes? I think in North Carolina, they're still trying to discount 60,000 votes. So if your um, vote was not important, if your voice was not important, they would not be trying to silence it. So, yes, we need to continue to be engaged in registering people to vote, but also educating people on the power of their vote. As we've seen it since 2024. There's been so many voter suppression laws. I think it was within 19 states. There's over 1,000 voter suppression laws that are also active, and also um, um, they are becoming law. So we have to look at those things.
Yeah. As we draw down, I want to get a chance to get your take on activism because obviously you are a person that's politically and socially active. And we're trying to look now to see where those next leaders are coming from. And we know a lot of them are young people that are coming up right up in the ranks. However, when we talk about activism, we also do say that there's some apathy there too, right? And what do we, so, when you see activism, when you see being that voice and that voice for the voiceless, how do you see its future?
I think more are young people doing it, but I also um, want our young people to walk alongside those heroes that have already walked that walk. There's always that passing from the elders to the youth. Civil disobedience is a moral choice, is the only moral choice, and so activism, regardless of age, is prevalent. What we need to also understand, it is the one thing that changes the arc of justice is activism, and everybody can be a part of it for a moral and just society. So our pastors, our faith leaders, our young people, do not tell a young person they're too young to walk, they're too young to speak out, because we need all those voices. We need a collective voice. The sound of the shofar, that loud voice, that loud sound that says that we will not stand for injustice anywhere in this country.
Yeah. And as you look at today and we see where we are today and what's happening in Washington, D.C., what are some of the initiatives that you guys are working on right now that maybe we need to be paying attention to?
Let's begin to attack your state capitals. Congress um, does have the power to stop most of the things that are happening. So we have to begin to have a strategic plan that begins to protest, that begins to engage our elected officials on the state level. We can start from local, absolutely, but then we need to move it up the states and begin to look at Congress. Hey, Congress, what are y'all doing? Are y'all allowing these things to happen and occur when you know that they're even against the Constitution, and yet you still stay silent? So we got to start attacking our Congress.
As for people who want to find out more information, how do they get connected? What do they do?
There are so many. Poor People's Campaign, you can sign on. You can go to the website of Poor People's Campaign. Repairs of the Breach is also the other organization that you can sign on to. Prophetic Council, under the Repairs of the Breach, is for all faith and moral leaders to be a part of. We do have a lot of faith led things planning. And so joining the Prophetic Council on the Repairs of the Breach website would be a way of staying engaged and staying in contact with the actions that we're going to be planning moving forward.
And I know you've worked very closely with Dr. William Barber, one who is very much the bishop, we call, of the social justice movement these days. Talk to me about what you've gleaned from him, what you've learned from him, and what you've implemented into your own, into your own workspace.
Moral analysis. You have to look at what is happening behind the headlines. So one of his favorite and one of his most profound statements is, "Do not be loud and wrong." So you have to do your research. You have to look at the facts and then do a moral analysis of the time. And then there's moral articulation. Now that I have this moral analysis of what is happening in this Pharaoh moment, okay, then the moral articulation. How do I begin to apply it? And then the moral agenda. Let me set out my agenda of how I'm going to engage people, how I'm going to connect with my state officials, and begin to say this budget is not um, helping out the least, the lost, and the left out. And then having moral action. Where do I begin to protest? Where do I begin to have civil disobedience? Where do I begin to do an email campaign or a writing campaign or a calling campaign to let them know we are paying attention to our elected officials? So those are the four things that he has taught me. Have a moral analysis. Don't just jump and run at a headline or a soundbite, but really sit down and begin to look a moral lens. What is happening in society? What is happening in the government? What is happening in our communities? Then have that moral articulation. Now, how do I take that moral analysis and begin to articulate it out into the communities where everybody can understand and get engaged? Then I have my moral agenda. These are the things we're going to be doing. Hit the state capitals, begin to look at mobilizing communities in civil disobedience, teaching, protests, those particular things. And then the moral action, let's come together collectively and begin to, let's get back into the streets. Let's get back into the streets.
Ah, Dr. Hannah Broome, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, and great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. We are taking a quick break, and guess what? We'll be back with more coming up right after this. And welcome back. In a world where entrepreneurship often focuses on a personal success, a revolutionary concept is emerging, one going beyond business to nation building. Imagine creating an entirely new country from scratch, rooted in vision, resilience, and innovation. Joining me now, the founder of the Kingdom of Kush, His Royal Highness Mansa Suliman Al Kushi. And His Royal Highness Mansa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to take the time to really unpack this, because for somebody who's on the outside looking in, this seems like a lot, but for you, this is an everyday journey.
That's correct.
Share with us the journey to really creating this.
I'm sorry?
Can you share a little bit about the journey and how you created this?
Oh, yes. The journey started in 1993 when the inspiration of Black Wall Street, we were reading about Black Wall Street and realized that people back then didn't have that much, but they have themselves. And because of that, they were able to create a very successful Black Wall Street. So that inspiration came in, and we decided to uh, create a new nation, just to replicate the same Black Wall Street, but in a different form, in the form of a sovereign nation. So during that research, we end up going towards our ancestral land, which is the Kingdom of Kush, to restore the legendary Kingdom of Kush. And from that, we planted the flag on June 13, 1993, to proclaim a sovereignty of that nation and the land that is called, before that, is called Bir Tawil. And Bir Tawil, it was considered as a no man's land, what the international community call a terra nullius. So when we proclaimed it, we started to call for the awareness and the importance of restoring our history, the importance to restore our heritage. So the journey started from that particular moment. And in that moment, we decided building a nation should not start with the bricks and mortar. It should start with building people first. So we've started going around African nations and calling upon the youth that were on the streets with no parents. And we started to get a space for them, renting mothers, not only to nourish them with food, but also to nourish them with motherly love. And we placed them in schools, and these children today became doctors, lawyers, politicians, governors, ministers, and so forth, business people. And from there, we started to now put temporary homes on the ground and establish in the country.
When you talk about declaring sovereignty, I mean that's a large feat, and for yourself being able to do that, talk about how difficult that was, really, to get to that place.
Yes, it's difficult to get to that place, but when you have determination to do something, it becomes very easy. And the thing is, we give a credit to all our teams. It was a group of African Americans that actually started this, and we went together. We've been working together since then. Some of them are older, and some of them actually passed away, but we continued the journey. And we think the determination is there in the hearts of people. And from that, we just didn't see it as difficult. So we think much more easier that a self-determination is real and we must do it.
As we look at your schedule, I mean, there's a lot that's going on in terms of moving from one place to another. When I say moving from one place to another, your schedule, where you once were this entrepreneur, that now you're a countrypreneur, and a lot of people have regarded you to be this countrypreneur. For somebody who may not know how a countrypreneur operates, take it away.
Yes, a entrepreneur is just a term that we invented. We look at people who creating enterprises and businesses. They're calling them entrepreneurs, but we never see in actual times people who build in countries. So we look it up. What is the name for people who build in countries? And we couldn't find a name, so we made it up to call it entrepreneurs because we engage in building a country. So the fact that we are taking up on building a country, it is called entrepreneur. And that is how we came up with that name in order to build a country.
Yeah. For yourself, obviously, it's been a huge feat just to get to this place, and building a nation, and you're building a nation, and literally uh, from the ground up. Somebody says, like, it's tremendously innovative, but at the same time, it's tremendously innovative. You also have to be very detailed in what you're trying to accomplish. From the innovation perspective, talk to me about how you're working this out and what you've got coming up in the future.
Yeah, so first of all, I will take a little one step back to building a country was not an experience that we had to start it. We don't know how to build a country. We never know anybody who built a country. There's no school for how to build a country, but they have information on what it takes to be a country. First and foremost, to become a country, you need four things. Number one, you need a territory with a defined borders. Number two, you need a government with a constitution. Number three, you need a population, a permanent populations. And number four, you need another sovereign nation to recognize you as a sovereign nation. So this fourth thing is necessary in order for you to become a nation. So we started with that. So we got a territory called Beritoia with a defined border. We have a permanent residence there. And then we have also a government with a constitution. Then we have 12 countries so far recognize us as a country. So our passport today can travel to those countries that recognize us. So that's the first steps for us. And number two is that we started to put in temporary homes for workers that start coming in. And the most innovative parts of what we do it's a little bit about decentralizing the country itself, because this particular territory that make us a country is between Egypt and Sudan, and the space there is about 2,060 square kilometers, which is about let's say 795 square miles, which represent 22 times Manhattan. So two times Dubai or three times Singapore. So what we're trying to do is not to just have that particular territory as a country. We want to have embassy cities, which give us autonomy on other land we have across Africa. Among those land, we have four islands. One island's in Madagascar, one island's in the Maldives, one island in Cape Verde, and one island in um, Guinea, Bissau. So having other lands such as DRC or um, the village of Kintakunte in Gambia. So all these little things we did we're trying to innovate the way the country are established in the past and the way we see it here now. For example, if a person doesn't like a desert, we want that citizen to have ability to stay in the island, or those who want to stay in the savannah, or those who want to stay in a tropical area. So we have a land across Africa that are attached to the kingdom central mainland, such as the U.S. does have Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Guam, or Virgin Island. China used to have, as a China has a Hong Kong. So we also have these islands and this land attached to us that is very innovative in the economic way, so that our citizens can live not just in one location, but we live across 34 African nations. That's how we think the economic power will help our citizen to have access to 34 countries that we are operating in, or we have an island or land.
So, as I got my information, I understand that 7 million people have applied for citizenship.
Correct.
For yourself, what do you think is that magic draw for 7 million people to say, listen, I want citizenship?
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people have different reasons why they want their citizenship, and I think one of the main reason for people is they are frustrated. There is a frustration, and at the same time there is a hope. Frustration for the system that claim to look out for them, but yet fail them in the multiple levels, and hope for a new alternative place that they can be who they are. They don't have to apologize for them being any particular race or age or nationality or accent or anything else, that they can just be free and be themselves. So they looking for changes where the system that they are living in is not able to change or don't want to change. And they think, okay, what about if we can build something together? If I can be part of something new, building a new nation, and be able to have some checkpoint for what works for us where we were coming from and what didn't work, and be able to build together a better life for not only ourselves but for the few generations to come. So that is what inspired these 7 million people who say enough is enough where we are, or we're looking for other options in case we have to get out.
Yeah. Now, you also have Kush listed as a smart city and a city where innovation will be a part of that. So, how is innovation going to run and be a part of the Kingdom of Kush?
Innovation will be an e-government. Everything today is much more digital economy, and we think our innovation will be making things as easy as possible by using technology, that the best technology available now. And if you want to apply for a license of doing business or any permits or anything, you should be able to go online and be able to apply. If you want a citizenship, you should be able to go online and apply. And it doesn't have to be a long line in a physical location or where the protocol and this administrations kind of can be slow. We want to make sure that even a voting system, marriage certificates or death certificates, whatever is needed, that we will be able to run the government digitally, whatever we may be. We could be here and running the government. We could be anywhere else in the world to be able to connect. Now we're using Zoom for everything. Now we're verifying information through technologies, facial recognition, and so forth. So we want to use the best technology available to innovate the education system, the voting system, how the government runs, the parliament, and there's more important things, the citizen engagement in how they want their country to be and be run by whom.
Yeah. So, how does the citizenship process work? If I'm outside of Africa, but I have a desire for citizenship, maybe myself, right? I say, listen, you know what? I want to become a part of the Kingdom of Kush. How do I do that?
Well, you just go straight online at our website, kingdomofkush.org. For now, we're working on kingdomofkush.kush and kingdomofkush.gov. But as of now, we have kingdomofkush.org, where you apply for your citizenship. And then we run all the background check. And of course, because it's an African country, all African diaspora, all people of African descent are almost automatically qualified because what we're building the Kingdom of Kush, it is the United States of Africa. So we don't believe that much on those artificial boundaries that were put on us, and we're dealing with them now. But our goal is to be able to create the United States of Africa that allow all African descent to be part of this. And of course, when it comes specifically for most of us, we became a mixed nation simply because some of us married to different race and our children are mixed. So the door is open for mainly everybody, but African American has a specific privilege of getting this citizenship.
Yeah. And for yourself, obviously, what does it mean to really undertake this process? Because there's certain people who have different aspirations. This is a lofty one, admittedly, and this is a huge one. But for someone like yourself, it's within reach. But to get it from where it is and to where it is right now, what's the process been like for you?
The process has been a challenging for the first 7 years. I received nothing but rejection because as 32 years ago, I was a little bit younger, so people couldn't understand that like this kid want to build a country. It's just a dream, and people don't want to even give me time because they just think either it's just dreamer. And I was not old enough to call me a scammer, so because I was younger then, but people didn't believe in the idea. It was a challenging, and it took 7 years for just one person to say, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said, "It's been 7 years." And they say, "I know the first time you came here, and how many people believe in you so far?" I said, "No one." And he told me, "I believe in you." All right. And of course, I've been rejected for 7 years. I couldn't believe him when he said, "I believe you." So then he said, "You have multiple problems. One is your age, you're too young, and people think you're just dreaming. Because what kind of education you have at this age, what kind of experience you have, even in a real life. So it doesn't make any sense. But because Black Wall Street was built by people with nothing, I believe if we come together to establish a new nation and we explain it with the older faces, people will start to believe in you. And he joined me, and whatever, anytime I set up a meeting, he will be there with me. And people start to believe in this. But it was a huge challenge and to be able to have people believe, because one, people think building a country it will take 100 of years. So I may not be alive. Why I need to waste my time? And but slowly people start to see when Dubai started from nothing, from a plain desert and build, they start to see, oh, it's possible. And from there, you start to see a lot of people making the comparison that if the whole entire continent of Africa, with its oh, sorry, with its own natural resources, and Dubai with just a petroleum, Africa has petroleum. Africa has a lot of natural resources. It's also possible for Africans to build a business hub that can be a bridge between Africa and the rest of the world, because Dubai did it for Arab world, Singapore did it for Asian world. Why Africa never had anything like that to be able to create a business hub for internationals? And people start to think maybe it's time to come together and build something together, because we have intellectual capacity around the world, from the United States to Brazil to everywhere. We have natural resources that the whole world wants. How come Africans, either from the motherland or African from the diaspora, cannot come together and build? So we start to see that revolution start to come into the spirit of people, and they start to support this idea. And the journey always been ups and downs. Sometimes you go to your house at night and think, am I doing the right thing? But the spirit of our ancestor kept telling, yes, keep it going. And the journey has been fun. I would say fun. I love what I do, and I want to be part of those who, of those ancestors that fought to liberate us, at least to have a voice in politics. But economically, we also have a duty and responsibility to contribute to that. And this Kingdom of Kush, to me, the journey of it is part of the contribution I will bring to, I'm thinking I'm bringing to the self-determination, liberation of our people.
His Royal Highness Mansa, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about the Kingdom of Kush. We certainly will follow the developments and wish you all the best. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. All righty. Well,
All right.
we want to let you know we come to the end of our show today. We hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. If you're rewatching this week's edition, catch Recablecast right here on BronxNet.org. Now, if you want to join in on the conversation, present your point of view, visit the website at BronxNet.org, as we said, and social media, BronxNet TV. Join us next week. We'll continue to elevate the discussion, bring further awareness on the issues happening across the globe. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care and God bless.